Hi, hello, welcome to my review of Star Wars: The Clone Wars Season 7, the final season. This has been a journey, I have to say. Again, Star Wars: The Clone Wars is my childhood, or not just Star Wars: The Clone Wars, but Star Wars in general is my childhood. And I remember watching this show every single week because it was one of the best things ever. The first season, when I started watching the show again, the first season I finished in May, so it's been a while since I've started this. It's a long journey, and yeah, I'm finally done with season 7. By the way, this is going to be full of spoilers. If you want my recap, I guess skip to the end, because there is basically a recap that I will give about the whole show. So, season 7 of Star Wars: The Clone Wars came in 2020. It was released 6 years after they released Star Wars: The Clone Wars season 6 on Disney Plus. It was also the first season that really did not feel as much like a anthology. That's basically the concept of this whole show, is that it has a lot of different storylines that don't really have to do a lot with each other. So there's always these adventures with Padme, for example, that are more about the political side of the Clone Wars. Then there's also a lot of episodes with the clones themselves, with Rex, with Fives, Echo, all these characters who are a little bit more important. Then there's also a lot of Jedi adventures. And this season is much less that. It still has different storylines, but it's still mostly about just the same characters. It's mostly about Rex, Ahsoka. The others don't really get a lot of attention, which has a reason. This is also the first season that I really didn't know anything at all about. Season 6 was already not that clear in my mind because I'd only seen the first few episodes, which were about Fives and this brain chip thing that he figured out, which had a lot to do with Order 66. I remember those episodes from back in the days, but I haven't seen anything after that. And in season 7, the only things I know are that Maul and Ahsoka are back after they were completely missing in season 5. So that was incredibly new and refreshing to have this show finally be just completely new for me. There's nothing I knew about the season or how it will conclude. The first 4 episodes are about Rex for the most part. He's the main character of these episodes, and it's about an algorithm, and the Separatists are using this algorithm to win battles very easily, it seems like, and they want to figure out what this algorithm is. It turns out it's Echo, who is a character we knew for a few seasons now. I think back in season 4, it definitely seemed like he died. There was nothing that really led me to believe that this guy is going to be important again. And it was great to see because Fives died in season 6, and next to Rex, he was the only clone character left in the show who was also an original character of the Clone Wars. So they kind of like this group that started out in the first season with this Clone Cadets episode. They have been there since the first season, which makes them very important for the show. To have all of them dead in season 6 was kind of sad, I have to say, and to have Echo back was a very nice surprise that I really liked. And these episodes are really good, especially because they start out very surprising in a way, because obviously we had a gap of 6 years between season 6 and season 7, and they updated a lot. It felt much more cinematic again, even more than season 6 was an upgrade to season 5 and 4, because it just looks so much more dynamic. The animation is much more detailed. Also, the characters are a little bit updated in their design because it's much closer to episode 3 in the Star Wars prequel trilogy. Also, all the battles look like so much more epic. They really found a good way to make these battles worth it and something refreshing again. Also because we have our main characters in these 4 episodes who are the Bad Batch. This is the clone troop that also got an own original series, which I am not really that interested in because these characters are not the most interesting. It's just a group of clones who all have their specific thing that they are really good at. Even though they are really cool and they lead to some amazing action sequences, they are still not the most interesting characters, I have to say. Also, I, by the way, watched the German dubbed version of this show for the whole 7 seasons because this is a show I know from my childhood and I'm not going to watch the English version. One thing I want to mention is that the voice actor of the clones, who is obviously just the same guy over and over again, also voiced the Bad Batch, and he seems like a good voice actor, but the big guy in the Bad Batch, he's really not that good. It seems like at creating different voices for every other character in the Bad Batch that he voiced, it was fine, it worked definitely, but this guy, it seemed so comically stupid, and even though the character was kind of comically stupid, it still just didn't really fit. He was so bad. But yeah, these episodes are really cool. The next 4 episodes are about mainly Ahsoka. She gets involved in criminal activities with a drug trade gone wrong, and she gets involved with a cartel. And this is actually a story in Star Wars: The Clone Wars These episodes are definitely not bad. They are way better than like just other episodes that feel very unnecessary. Simply because also Ahsoka is like one of the most interesting characters in this whole show, and simply her presence in this story makes the story feel much more worth it. But in general, this story wasn't needed. I would have been firstly much more interested in seeing what she did in between season 5 and season 7. Also, secondly, the characters who we meet in these episodes, like the two sisters, they also don't really appear anymore in this season later on. So they really feel like they just like had to fill this season with a few more episodes. I can probably, if I would care more, seek out a few things that I really didn't like about these episodes because they had a few problems. But in general, it's a decent story. There's nothing completely wrong with it. It's just not as necessary or interesting in comparison to what comes after this, because this season is just like season 5 in that it has a few good to decent episodes, and then all of a sudden just tops everything by having the last storyline in a season be absolutely outstanding and amazing. These last few episodes are partly about taking over Mandalore again, because Mandalore is still in the hands of Maul. And so they actually, like, again, I'm like so glad that Mandalore is actually a place that gets used. Not because I'm really interested in the place, but simply because we had so many episodes with the leaders and the conflict of Mandalore, and they were all so boring and unnecessary, it felt like. So it was very, very refreshing to see in season 5 that this place actually gets used for this very interesting storyline between Maul and Savage and Obi-Wan and also now Ahsoka. It feels like this whole build up of all these episodes we had like in season 2 and 3 and 4 were worth it. And yeah, I genuinely have to praise the writing in these episodes, because what they do is bridge the gap between the events of episode 3 and Star Wars The Clone Wars. Because to be honest, I knew the events of Star Wars episode 3, and I knew that the characters of Rex and Ahsoka are completely made up for Star Wars The Clone Wars. But they were very important for Anakin as a character. So having them not appear in Star Wars episode 3 makes sense, because Star Wars The Clone Wars didn't exist yet. So what they did is have these two characters, Ahsoka and Rex, also Darth Maul, be just on this battle on Mandalore, and they are completely separate from the story that is going on with Mace Windu and Obi-Wan and all the other Jedi, and mainly Anakin, because this is a story we already know. We don't need to see all this again. So they just basically write around all of these events. We sometimes see a few characters who appear in Star Wars episode 3, and it's basically the last time we really see them alive before they have their death scene in Star Wars episode 3, which is kind of tragic, I have to say. It starts out with Count Dooku actually being pronounced dead because Anakin killed him, and then we also see Mace Windu and Kit Fisto and two other Jedi whose name I forgot. We see them saying, hey, we have to arrest the Chancellor, and we know exactly what happens in episode 3. So it's really tragic to see them like they don't know what's coming. And in general, I have to say that watching or knowing what happens in the original prequel trilogy of Star Wars, it really makes these episodes much more tense and in general just better, because you constantly have in mind that all of these tragic events are happening, and you are not just like very anxious about like these things happening, but in general you're just waiting for them. You are constantly waiting for the moment when they say Order 66 is now and we have to kill the Jedi, and we know for the whole time that Rex and Ahsoka are together there, and I was just waiting for this scene, and I didn't know how it was going to end. What's already great about the storyline is that we know also a little bit of his backstory now, because he was kind of betrayed by Palpatine, it feels like, and he doesn't really know what Palpatine's plan is. He only knows that he has a plan, but he doesn't know what exactly is the plan. So he's constantly just waiting. He knows that something is going to happen soon, which is Order 66. But when Order 66 happens, he's actually surprised himself how genius that move is. But as great as the story with Maul is, I have to say that the whole dynamic between Rex and Ahsoka is easily the best thing about these episodes. It's fucking tragic, I have to say. The scene of Order 66 is so gut-wrenching and sad. The tear that went over Rex's cheek in the scene where he's being told that he has to kill Ahsoka. I shared the tear with him because it was just so sad. Seeing one of these clones actually be so sad about something and so just completely broken down that even the clone has to cry. I didn't expect that, and it was sad as fuck. It was so sad, and I felt everything for this guy. Even though the clones are not the most interesting characters, because they all are basically the same. But we have been with these guys for so long that it is very tragic to see what happens there. I don't know yet if I really just have a problem with the way that this story progressed, or if it's just against my expectations, which would be fine, you know. There's nothing wrong against making something surprising. And that's the fact that Rex not killing Ahsoka doesn't really come from himself. There's obviously this conflict that is shown, but the resolution of this conflict is basically just Ahsoka removing his chip, and it feels like a very easy way to get out of the situation. I would have liked to see his conflict a little bit more, and in the end seeing him by himself deciding that he shouldn't kill Ahsoka. That would be, I don't know, I think I would have just liked that way of concluding this story a little bit more. And also, in general, I'm not unhappy with the ending of the show, but I kind of would have wanted a little bit more, because the last episode is basically just about Rex and Ahsoka surviving, and like trying to survive against an army of clones who are all trying to kill both of them. So yeah, it's just a survival episode basically of them trying to get out of the ship, and the last scene of them is just seeing Rex and Ahsoka are alive, and we see this scene of Darth Vader picking up Ahsoka's lightsaber, which is a good scene definitely, but I would just kind of want a little bit more of what is going to happen now. The resolution of this 7-season long series was just two of the main characters like surviving, and that's it. It feels like there could have been a little bit more. I don't want a teaser for another show or anything, but I don't exactly know what I want from the ending of the show, but I just felt like it was lacking a little bit. But I shouldn't be unhappy, because at least my main or my favorite characters survived. And that's it. That's Star Wars The Clone Wars Season 7. I would give this season at least a 7.5 out of 10. I am happy with it, definitely. I am happy with the ending for the most part, and I am just glad that the series wasn't dragged along forever, because I really don't know how I would have taken more Jar Jar Binks episodes and more political episodes with Padme. It would have just been unnecessary. But that's also it with my journey of watching Star Wars The Clone Wars. I'm kind of sad that it's over, but I'm also glad, because I finally want to move on to some different series. Also, I'm kind of open now to watch all of the other series that the Star Wars universe has to offer now. There's a new Ahsoka season out, which I'm pretty interested in. I'm interested in watching Obi-Wan. If I would give a rating on the rest of the show, or like the show in its entirety, I have to say that season 1 is a 5.5. It has these good episodes on Ryloth and a few other single good episodes here and there, but for the most part it's just very dull and boring, I have to say. Season 2 was actually pretty great. It had the Boba Fett episodes, it had the Zilla Beast episodes, it had the Holocron heist episodes, it had even like political episodes with Mandalore that were kind of interesting, because it was constantly about the Chancellor of Mandalore being threatened to get killed somewhere, and there's some other traitor here and there. Like, those episodes are actually kind of interesting in this season, so I would give season 2 an 8 out of 10. Season 3 is either really cool or just really boring, so I would give it a 7 out of 10. And season 5 starts out really okay, then really bad, and then like is really good. So that season I would give an 8.5 out of 10. Season 5 and season 6 I've already rated, and that's also the movie Star Wars The Clone Wars, which I would give a 6 out of 10. It's a fine movie. It's not outstanding, it's not bad either. So just looking at the average, this would be a 6.5 out of 10 as a whole show. I would maybe give it a 7, because to me, like, the highlights are really worth it, and the lowlights are just like okay to skip. Looking back, what are the highlights of the show? I have to say, so most of the very dark episodes, the whole story with Darth Maul, Savage Opress, and Asajj Ventress, those episodes are like very intense and dark, and I really enjoyed those every time like these characters came back into the scene. Almost every single storyline about clones that focused on clones were really interesting as well, with Rex and Files and Echo. Also, every episode with Ahsoka was like genuinely just much more interesting, again because Ahsoka was there. Also, the streak of episodes where Obi-Wan goes undercover with all these bounty hunters. What are the worst episodes in this whole show? And one that instantly comes in my mind are the 2 episodes about C-3PO and R2-D2, I think in season 4 or season 5, where they are just like going from planet to planet doing like, I don't know, really these episodes are so unnecessary and ass. And also season 6 had these episodes with these droids, which was just something else with droids and shit like that. Or Jar Jar Binks. Jar Jar Binks has had a lot of episodes in this show in general. So I do have to say, if you think about watching Star Wars: The Clone Wars, definitely do it, because the highlights of the show are really worth it, especially if you're a Star Wars fan. The lowlights are very low and boring, and the show definitely has a few episodes where it's really just where I'm just wishing that we could skip this and move on to something more interesting. It's still worth it. It's just a very inconsistent show for the most part. But yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I guess see you guys with my next video.